Welcome, Shanaaz, to our event, My Life, My Business. Wish I was here. And I welcome you not as somebody who just attends. You are, and I'm going to call, you are the co host to this event. And our listeners join as we continue talking. But I look forward to hearing what you have to share, and so excited because you've just positioned that it's going to be experimental. So I love experiments, and I think it's one of the better ways of learning. And just a reminder to our listeners that if they want to listen to our podcast last week, I shared a topic, and it was an extension, a continuation. It was chapter 2 on business nuggets from a novice biker, and the tips and experiences gained from my first ride. So you can access this via YouTube, and the channel is called the Mufasa Coaching Practice. And but without further ado, I want to hand over to Shanaaz, and she's gonna definitely take us through a topic that's going to be challenging, but it's going to be highly entertaining. Shanaaz, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Jacques. And so I was really inspired by your bike riding and how you kind of had all those huge trucks and you on your little bike, and the fear that must have kind of crossed your mind and how you needed to have dealt with it. And so that inspired me, and I was thinking about why the work that I often get requested to do at organizations, or people invite me, or the work that I often have to do in my practice. So, so I've called it how body mapping can help you feel the fear and do it anyway. And so I want to introduce everyone and yourself, Jacques, to a little technique called body mapping. And I don't know whether you've heard about it before, because I know that you kind of do work in several fields. So what for those who are new and don't know what I'm talking about, body mapping then is described as a process of creating body maps using drawing, painting, or other art-based techniques to visually represent aspects of our lives or our bodies in the world that we live in. So, what I sometimes do, because I often am working with adults, I would give them a pen and paper. So, because I think often, when we hear art and drawing, then we're thinking, oh, this is going to be one of those away with the fairy techniques, and it's definitely not one of those, but it's been used so successfully. So one of the things that I often hear when I'm speaking at organizations or with groups of people is, do we all need therapy, to get over everything? We firstly, South Africa, and I think our continent is not a therapy based kind of society, as the West is. And what I find is that our lack of resources definitely also kind of prevents us sometimes from accessing mental health resources. And May was actually Mental Health Awareness Month, by the way. And so, what body mapping is, it is a tool that has been used in the global south as well as global north to help people become unstuck, address their fears, address experiences of trauma, and it's actually been used also to kind of empower people where they are stuck in a particular situation. And what you kind of often find is that, what I've also seen is that it's also used in a number of health settings or even in organizational settings, where they will get people to draw the map for example, occupational health. Draw your body, and then you've got to say where the pain is. So it's something similar to that. And what body mapping actually does is allow you to tell a story. So when we experience fear, or when we experience a trauma or a big loss, whether that's been in the past, or presently we're dealing with, what tends to happen is that because our brain is in often in fight or flight mode, what happens is we cut off from our bodies. In a sense, we don't often, in that moment when you're experiencing the fear, you just want to survive. And so I had this picture of you, Jacques, with the trucks kind of coming on, and on both sides of you, and you just like hanging on there thinking like, I can't fall off or something like that. You kind of not thinking with the front part of your brain, which is the rational, logical sense, and you are responding. And when we are in that moment, what tends to happen is we sometimes, as I said, we cut off from our bodies. And so, what body mapping actually does is help you to order the events. So when we order the events in a particular way, because we're sharing a story, then it actually can address the fear or the trauma that we've experienced, that we're experiencing. And what literally happens when we go through this process of sharing the story of our fear, like Jacques, you've shared the story of your bike. What it actually does is it moves the fear or the anxiety from the one part of our brain, you can call it the ancient part of our brain, to the more rational side of the brain, where we can make better decisions, rather than react all the time. So it's been very popular, as I said, and it's really such a empowering way to kind of work through some challenges. And so what I'm going to do, I've also based it. There's this really brilliant trauma article, which is called "The Body Keeps the Score." And what this psychiatrist actually does is he's taken it and adapted for individual patients. And one can even do this, I think, as a coach with your client. And what he says is that what often happens then is that the memories or our experiences are then often not it's not integrated into our life or in language. And so this then brings the split between our body and our mind. And I often kind of think about how you can get a really successful person, and I often see this in women, really successful women, but they are not taking care of their bodies. I've seen this in men as well. So there's an indication that somewhere there is a disconnect between our mind and our body, and so this kind of helps with that as well. So what I'd like you to do, and you can take part in this with me. I'm going to use myself as an example to kind of chat with. So they are, what you do is you'd have some paper, and you're going to sort of start off with, you don't have to do the draw an outline of your body immediately, but a stick figure is usually fine, I would say. And so we kind of start off. I'm going to be asking questions, and I will kind of be responding to it, and I'll give you an example of my one of my own experiences. So one of my own experiences is, at times I have a real fear of heights, although I've done rock climbing and all sorts of adventure sports. I actually used to do it regularly. And then I started wondering about, why do I have such a fear? And then I recalled when I was a child, I was involved in a traumatic incident where the car nearly went, my mom's car, they were learning to drive. I was left in the car, I think, and I lifted up the handbrake. And I nearly went rolling down the mountain, apparently. And so, and I remember recalling how I would have nightmares as I grew older about falling down a mountain. And I never really spoke to my mom about this. Only afterward, when I became older as an adult, I started to connect the two. So, what we're going to do is think of an experience, a fear, or a challenge, or a traumatic incident. It can be an actual accident, a car accident you may have been in. So, we're going to start from the top. What you want to do is you want to ask the person how they're feeling today. So, if I respond and I say, I'm feeling cold, and I'm feeling curious about this whole experience, and kind of seeing how it's going to be. So you'd start off with that question: how do you feel today? The second question you would ask then is to you can ask people to draw it, or you could just ask them, what is a symbol that represents you? And so, Jacques, if you wanted to come in and respond to any of these questions, you're free, or you can just sit and kind of listen. So, for me, I thought a bit about this, and the symbol that would represent me is probably a sunflower. I was thinking that at the moment there's apparently the middle part of a sunflower or mini sunflowers, and so for me, that's all my thoughts going on at the time, and that I really sometimes do need to give myself a break. But I guess the yellow petals, in terms of my enthusiasm, I generally take on any task with that enthusiasm, and I tend to be a bit of an extrovert at times. But there's a large part of me, like the dark part of the sunflower, that's very thoughtful and very deep, and at times quiet as well. The third question is, who supports you? When I think of, and so these are questions you can ask your clients. So when I think of who supports me, at the moment, who supports me are my siblings, particularly my one sister, and then also I believe my church family supports me. Then the fourth one is, how do you see yourself? And so this is where you get to draw a self portrait, or, as I said, draw a stick figure. And sometimes I will ask my clients, how do you see yourself? And they'll respond. And if I had to respond, how do I see myself? I do see myself as someone who is very busy, but also deep thinking. Often, I think I've mentioned with a flower, um, often very busy, and actually I should spend more time being less busy. So the fifth question is one that I really like, and I often see people surprised when we ask these questions. Where do you draw your strength from? It's also very empowering for people, and I think if I had to answer it, where do I draw my strength from? I would also at this point do with a body map is I'll ask the patient or the client to draw where they draw their strength from in terms of their body. So for me, I think I would draw it by my brain, because yeah, I'm one of those thinkers that think too much at the time. So, but it's also a strength, and I do acknowledge that it can be a weakness also. um that's where I draw my strength from, and from my heart, I think my beliefs is also where I draw my strength from, and my faith, and I would place that at my heart, if I was drawing this on a stick figure. Then the sixth question is traumatic experiences. We state that can be felt usually in the body. So, where do I feel what I've been through? So, if I'm particularly thinking of this incident that I mentioned in terms of the accident that I wasn't aware of, that I was in at the time, um, I think that I feel it. When I recall my fear of heights, even though I do, I rock climb. I think I definitely feel it in my head again, and then I feel it in my chest. For some people, it can be particularly muscles ache. I've worked with someone where they were in an accident where a part of the arm was quite damaged. So for them, it would be pain in the arm. So it's about noting in your body, because often we forget that it's about reconnecting our mind with our body in a sense. So for me, a lot of it happens in my chest. My breath goes dry when I'm experiencing this fear or generally fears, and also my head. So you can see that there's a theme already running through this with me and my and my head. Then the seventh question that you would ask is, what happens to your body when you daydream or when you lose awareness? And when I lose awareness, when I'm not present, I think that I tend to hunch my shoulders and I feel it in my back. Like I will often be so focused and hunched over my work that I kind of lose sense of present, and I usually experience headaches, or I'll experience tension in my shoulders particularly. um, and then the next question is question 8. What techniques, or what do you do, if you do anything, to remind yourself that you are, in the present, and that maybe you're not, if you're recalling some traumatic events. For some people, when they do daydream, they may think about a particular traumatic incident. So how do you bring yourself back when you, for example, daydreaming, or you're thinking about that particular fear? And what I find is that people don't actually think about this again. So again, for me, what I do is, I think I get up and I start to walk around a bit, just so that I can loosen the tension in my body. And I think that I should actually become more physically active as well. And I think that really helps me a lot when I've been much more physically active in the past. Um, and then the ninth question is around, do you take any medications? What do they look like? And then in your body. And what I find is really interesting, that often people that I didn't know is on medication will actually share this with me. And then, as working with people, it's sometimes really important. They will, for the first time, they may be willing to share that they're on a particular medication for their heart, that they're on a particular medication for blood pressure. And then I haven't asked them and I didn't know this. Or it could be that they on an anti-anxiety medication, and so for the first time I'll be told. So the kind of medication that, well, I've been on for the past week, 2 weeks at least previously, was the antibiotics and antihistamines and etc. And any side effects, my mouth was particularly dry, so from the meds apparently. So what you also then have is people actually talking about how they feel about taking medication. And again, what this does is actually bring you back again to making that connection with what is going on in your body and what is actually going on in your head. And the interesting thing why, let me just give you the name of the author. It's Alison Crawford. So why she called it "The Body Keeps the Score" is that often we think when people experience a traumatic event, or they experience some kind of fear what tends to happen is that they think that it's over and done with because they it's forgotten, it happened a couple of months ago. But often the reason why people end up at the doctor is related often to that the physical symptoms are actually psychological, or it could be from an event that happened a while ago that they thought that they are over. And that's why she says the body keeps the score. In other words, your body will remember the event even though you don't. And so, what we're trying then to do is to try to connect you with your body again, because we are, mind, body, and soul or spirit, depending on your beliefs. The other thing that the next question, then number 10, is really interesting as well. And I find people respond so well to this. What is a personal slogan that you live by? And for me, I think it would be, God first. And dependent on where you come from and what's important to you. You could have several personal slogans that you live by, and or you can spend time thinking about your personal slogan, in terms of how you live your life by. And again, I find that this creates so much discussion, and it gives so much hope to people because they start to remember um, things that has happened in the past, or they start to remember their priorities and their beliefs and their values. And then question 11, it's the final question. What do you see for your future? And is there anything you are doing now that you would like not to be doing? And is there anything you are not doing that you would like to work toward doing? And so when I think about myself and I think about this fear that I had, and it was about something that I really do enjoy doing, that I do see myself being more physically active in the future. And I think it's the question is, and rock climbing again. Hiking is easy because you there's no there's not much height fear in hiking for me. But the rock climbing was something that I loved, and there was some fear in that. And is there anything that I'm doing? Yep, I said that I would like not to be doing. I think not to be doing is I do spend, I think, too much time with work. I need to prioritize it more so that I can be as effective at work, but I need to spend time for in other areas of my life that I've neglected, which includes my health. And then, is there anything that I'm working toward doing? And I think that these are really great questions, and they create such good discussions when you are working with people who have been particularly stuck. And so, maybe for me, to put it out there, I'd like to be able to run a 10-kilometer one day. So, or I'm working towards it. And so those are the questions that you can ask, and what they would hopefully start to do. I give the client the map that they've done, and what we would do is we would come back and look at it again, because obviously this is something that because does involve a lot of discussion. You can do it over 2 sessions, you can do it over 3 sessions. The great thing about this is that you can also do it with yourself. As I said, we are not a therapy society like the West. We don't have the resources, yet there's a lot of tools that are available to us that can assist us in just becoming unstuck. It can assist us in addressing some of our fears and it can also assist us in working through some of the trauma. And this is an example of how one would work through a traumatic event or a fear, or where someone feels stuck. So that's me. And as you have a discussion with a person, or even as you write down, if you're doing it, you can do it on your own. Even as you write down and you complete your body map, what will literally start happening is that the events will start taking order in the way that your brain works, and it will be filed, in a sense, in the correct part of your brain, where it's not just like you can't remember what happened, but you'll be able to share the story. And I think in the very same way, Jacques, that you are starting to share your story of your biking experience, and that's an indication, that you've sat down and worked through that fear. And I really think that that's something that one can use as a metaphor for a lot of the fears and the stuck places in our life. Yeah. So thank you. That's me. Any comment or question or discussion?
So, um, so I drew my stick man whatever, and you'll see there in the chat box. I try to answer some of these questions, um, but it's really interesting, and I want to ask you because you're talking about the separation of mind and body, and I'm just wondering, I have never been able, when being part of these sessions, Shanaaz, is to particularly um, identify the feeling and where in my body I I see other people like you've explained. Yep, that's the customary
Yeah.
security officer, the guard. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, so Shanaz, just somebody like me who's so disconnected from that emotion, the feeling, and locating it in the body. I have failed in this place, and I'm so envious of those around me that can just, easily and naturally do that. How do I
So you
overcome
want to
this?
know? So do you want to know how? Or do you
Yes.
want to? So firstly, for me, it's about tension, right?
Uh huh.
So, and it's about, where do I think of, even if I can't think of at the moment, what is the first thing that comes to mind to me? And for me, it would be that it's a combination of the tension, or it's about remembering from what has happened before. So maybe not in that moment you can recall where is the feeling now, but maybe previously. Does that make any sense?
It does, but it's one of the, I'm like, what is the art here? Because I miserably fail at this part of the exercise.
So,
Um,
so I think no, but I think it's just really about, I think it's not overthinking it firstly, and I think it's about, if I had to ask you, is there a place in your body that it doesn't have to be regularly, but occasionally feel pain? Where is it?
the place most prominent is in my knee, and this is something that I will discuss in several chapters going forward from my story.
Yeah,
But yeah, I broke my knee while
yeah,
riding, obviously,
yeah,
and so I got the same sort of things like when the weather's going to change and it's going to rain, then I feel it in my leg. You
yeah,
know.
yeah. So
Uh,
for me, if I was working through that, I would go with your leg. I would go with your leg.
okay. Okay.
because, and it would be interesting because then it goes on to the discussion of the accident that you have, and that is possibly where you will start to maybe order some more things around the accident, or obviously you over it, but that could be something where that would be a starting point.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. So, all right. So, you know, in a way, I've got so many questions, but I can definitely take it offline. So, but Shanaz, body mapping, drawing it all out, addressing the fears, and these are such great questions. I mean, these are fantastic coaching questions, actually. I mean, I got some strange things that when I'm thinking about it and I'm answering these questions, it's like, and I'm answering them quite truthfully,
Yeah.
and so on and so on. But I think once again, the two things that, or the one thing that what this body mapping does is addressing the things that keep you in one place, that sort of imprisons you, isn't it?
Yes.
And therefore, using this very creative way of understanding that when you connect your mind to your body, the one thing that you also said, and I see that in some of my clients, is the very powerful career women who don't necessarily combine and all kinds of facets of their life, career, etc., health, and those things. And so the work life balance is not working as well because it seems as like gotta apply some trade offs and becoming disconnected. So the the whole awareness of where you're at and realizing that your body's talking to you. It's like I don't know, traffic light or some sort of road sign that gives you an indication that you're heading somewhere and you need to take note. There's a sharp bend coming in the road, or you entering a hairpin bend, so you need to notice. I don't know. These are the image. These are the sort of the things that are being conjured up in my head as I think through all of this. All I can say, Shanaz, is the longer I talk about this, the more I think I'm gonna keep us talking tonight. But there's there is so much here. And the last thing I just wanted to pick on, that you said that really gives value to the exercise is body mapping allowing us to order events. As we share the story of our fear, because when it's all jumbled up, etc., it's incoherent, and it's definitely irrational, then you never get to actually dealing with it, and it's much bigger than what it really is. And the ability to start ordering it is also the opportunity to start dealing with it in a sort of more systematic way, I guess. And this is what I'm taking from what you're sharing. But I just got to tell you, this is something where I'm gonna go through these questions. I'd like to actually draw. I did draw my stick man, and but I want to do more of this, Shana. So thank you very much.
It's a pleasure, and thank you so much for allowing me. As I said, I think that it's important that people have tools, in their toolbox that they can use, because these resources are, sometimes people don't have access to them, and I find that this has worked really good. I worked with a group of male leaders, and there's this idea that men don't talk about their feelings, which is true, and they were so willing to do this, and so it really works well with people who are a bit of resistant in a sense,
Yeah.
because they can easily talk about the other things, but it actually really works, and I've really seen some good work, and internationally, the research on it is very positive in terms of people's responses, so it definitely does work. So
Well,
thanks.
Thank you. It's been fabulous. And like I say, it's so content rich. And yes, it's practical, it's great tools. And just for the listeners, go through these 11 questions, answer them, try and try again, and begin to notice that awareness between mind and body and where things are at. Locate yourself. It also reminds me that it's a bit of a mindful exercise as well. But how do we deal then with our challenges unless we become mindful of them? I mean, even the question of around what happens when you're daydreaming or you're thinking about some traumatic event, etc. But to link it all into this awareness of body and mind and so on, and where you're feeling it. So I will definitely be talking to the pain in my knee when it comes and connecting with it a lot more. So thank you, Shanaaz,
Great.
and
Thank you, Jacques. Thanks,
until
everyone.
yeah, until next week. Cheers
Yep.
for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.